where up to 4 astronauts will live and work throughout the flight, the service module, with life support systems for the crew and its own engine and fuel reserves, and a launch abort system with engines capable of pulling the crew module to safety during launch should anything go wrong. To accomplish the task of launching our crew and heavy payloads, NASA is building the Space Launch System, comprising of a cargo hold, an exploration upper stage, a massive core stage, and 2 extended solid rocket boosters. Altogether, this is the world's most powerful rocket, and it exceeds the legendary Saturn V of the Apollo era in numerous ways. Sitting on the launch pad, the entire rocket, fully fueled, weighs just over 6 million pounds, 5.2 million of which is just the fuel. Once ignited, there is no stopping what comes next. All 4 RS-25 engines and the 2 solid rocket boosters come to life, thundering our crew upwards. 2 minutes after ignition, the solid rocket boosters are spent and released. 8 minutes after launch, the core stage is depleted and separated. The upper stage fires briefly, placing Orion into a parking orbit around the Earth. Here, the crew reconfigure the spacecraft and check systems to confirm everything is ready for deep space travel. With a go from mission control, the crew reignite the exploration upper stage engines to leave Earth entirely. The exact timing of this maneuver is critical to reach a speed that can escape Earth's gravitational pull, but also put Orion on a course that will intersect the Moon days later. Once this burn is complete, the upper stage of the SLS is jettisoned and the crew aboard Orion coast for several days toward all that awaits them at the Moon. Approaching the Moon, we see the fundamental differences between Artemis and Apollo. Instead of requiring Orion to serve as an expendable lunar command module or to carry a constrained lunar lander, the Artemis missions will take advantage of a different approach: pre-staging. Everything needed for lunar missions will be positioned in advance by commercial and international partners. This includes rovers, science experiments, and human-rated systems on the surface. But it also includes a dedicated lunar station in orbit around the Moon called Gateway. Here at this station, we can pre-stage a robust lunar lander and establish a strong communications relay. Designed with open standards, the Gateway can be expanded as new missions and partnerships develop, allowing multiple human missions on the Moon at the same time and enabling ongoing science to be conducted even between human missions. The Gateway is also capable of adjusting its orbit to allow access to every part of the Moon, something the Apollo missions could not do. But the real key in this approach is placing Gateway in a unique halo orbit to perfect the maneuvers needed for Mars missions. And with the growing list of commercial and international opportunities, Gateway is the ideal hub between Earth and all that lies beyond. Returning to our crew as they approach Gateway, the Orion must match the elliptical orbit of the station in order to successfully dock. Once on board, pre-selected crew members transfer to the lunar lander, while those assigned to Gateway remain on station. The lunar lander system itself is built for 3 unique steps: descending from the halo orbit of Gateway down to a low lunar orbit, descending from low lunar orbit to the surface, and once the lunar mission is complete, launching from the surface of the Moon and ascending all the way back to the orbiting Gateway. Once back aboard the Orion spacecraft and undocked from Gateway, the crew fire their engine once to break out of the halo orbit and once again to sling the spacecraft around the Moon, placing it on a multi-day trajectory back towards Earth. As they near the end of this journey, the service module is released, and the crew module is oriented heat shield first. Entering Earth's atmosphere at 25,000 miles per hour, the friction of air slows Orion considerably, while also subjecting it to temperatures of 5,000 degrees. With the Orion now at just 300 miles per hour, a series of parachutes uniquely tested and produced for this moment deploy, decelerating the craft to just 20 miles per hour for splashdown. With each successful mission, Artemis ushers in the next wave of men and women to explore our Moon and prove that together we are ready to go beyond.
to work at 5 o'clock. Morning briefing at 6:30. It's just another day at the office. Or is it really?
There's a lot to juggle in the field, so life in the field can be quite hectic. It takes 3 hours to do a full warm-up of all the instruments on this aircraft. That means a start at 5 a.m. in the morning and a takeoff at about 8 a.m. The forecasters will look at the conditions to verify that the flight is ready to go, and the plane will take off for an 8-hour flight.
So, if you're a scientist studying air pollution, where should you be doing your research? Yep, that's right, in the air.
And once the plane takes off, the fun begins. There's a lot of talk on the headsets about what we're seeing and whether it makes sense in terms of what the models had predicted. Don't forget that this aircraft is flying in the atmosphere to verify whether the models can do a good job of predicting air quality. Each flight begins with a pass through the city of Seoul for a chance to see what that looks like. And then we go to high altitude to fly along the peninsula along a route that we've chosen and looking down with what we call the LiDAR. The lasers that point underneath the aircraft provide information on the pollution levels at different altitudes down toward the ground. And we have to use that information to decide where we will want to sample in altitude along that same path following the LiDAR paths. That 8-hour flight does not stop us from continuing forecasting on the ground and trying to give information to the flight as it happens in case conditions change. And so those days can be very busy between planning tomorrow's flight but making sure that today's flight happens well.
There's a lot to do on the flight days for the scientists on board the aircraft. However, there are other teams that also have to be working around the clock in order to have these airborne laboratories ready for investigating the atmosphere.
On this mission, the maintenance crew is pretty busy. We've got so many scientists on board. All the scientists have different needs and requirements, such as changing out some of the gases they have on the airplane. They also need to definitely make sure the airplane is pre-flight right, so we're good to go. Check out a lot of the systems. They're refueling the airplane. Before the flight, they take off all those covers off all the probes, which actually takes quite a bit of time. And then after the flight, they need to put those back in place. So I mean, the maintenance crews are the guys. They're the first guys to show up in the morning and the last guys to leave at the end of the day. They make sure we have a good jet for that day's mission. And if we break the jet on that mission, they're the ones who've got to fix it and get it ready for the next one.
Teamwork is the key to a successful campaign. The Chorus AQ mission involves the coordinated effort of over 500 people.
We have about 505 people registered on the mission website, and of those, about 300 have been active participants at some point during the deployment, and we had to ensure that everybody had access when they needed.
Scientists, crew, technicians, but also equipment, supplies, logistics. A massive scientific research mission requires planning ahead and effective management.
Preparations for something of this size begin years in advance. And so, having already visited here with the Earth Science Project Office several times, we were able to put together a situation that would enable this many scientists and this many resources to be put into play.
ESPO is involved in all phases of the mission, from its conception to its planning and the implementation. We need to understand what the researchers want, which become our requirements, and then we come here and see how we can best meet those requirements, whether they are logistical or operational.
The Earth Science Project Office is in charge of managing the mission. Anything you need to accomplish your objectives during the mission, they are the people to go to.
Entering a foreign country is very difficult with all the things that we bring. Operating in a foreign country is difficult because their airspace is very busy and maybe some of their procedures are different than ours. And keeping the flow of people and information and equipment smooth and in a way that does not interrupt or distract us from the science is a great talent, and we appreciate the Earth Science Project Office's support.
They are the ones making sure scientists have everything they need to keep working every day. So if you want to do a good job, you have to go to the right place and measure at the right time with the right people. And for these people, the right place is in the air. Although in the end, for them, maybe it wasn't just like another day at the office.
Yeah, it's a totally different experience.
The work we do here day to day is much different than what we do in the lab.
I've been waking up pretty early at about 4 a.m. and then we get out here at about 5 to warm up our instrument because the laser takes a while to warm up to peak power.
We'll be taking out gas cylinders and putting in new ones.
After every flight, we switch out the air canisters for the next day's flight.
Filling water or calibrating the instruments, making sure they're running correctly.
And then we come back out and mess with the laser a little more.
So I've definitely developed my muscle mass here.
You know, it's a lot of work, but it's also a lot of fun, and definitely different from just working in a lab or an office all the time.
I think I often describe myself as a soldier, a physician, and an astronaut. The pursuit of those happened in that order. And one of the earliest memories I have is of always wanting to be in the military, of wanting to be a soldier. Quite a history of military service in our family. Both of my grandparents, my father was an Air Force officer, and I also remember my parents telling me a story about my great-uncle Clink, Harry McClintock, who was a paratrooper in World War II. He was in the 101st Airborne Division and jumped at Normandy on D-Day, and then jumped in Operation Market Garden in Holland. And that was the first time I had ever heard of the concept of a paratrooper or what it meant to be an airborne soldier. So when I later decided, I graduated from high school and I went to West Point, I knew that I was very interested in this concept of being an airborne soldier. At West Point,